presentation is on sustainable building processes in northern London. And then the course of my completion is the introduction to my research, the methods I used, my results of the research, a discussion about it, the limitations I had, and the acknowledgements and references. First of all, I've been interested in this topic through my childhood, and most importantly, through my experience in Ely, Minnesota, where I went to Oklahoma and followed the Natalie Poland camp, and I volunteered on Willis Speaker's property. The photo of the house is a sustainable structure he built. The introduction to my research is, first of all, what is the question? And my research question is, what are home designs that achieve sustainable building practices and maintain affordability in northern climates? And then the purpose of it is to understand approaches to sustainable home design and building practices, particularly in Markham, Michigan, and then broadening it to other climates. In my research, I looked at materials used in homes, the efficiency of the homes, home design, how it fits the individual's lifestyle, the carbon footprint of both the building and the home itself. And the relevance of the study, I believe it's important to research this kind of stuff and have a good understanding as Northern Michigan and other places become more sought after because of climate change. So my main research method was interviews, and I used the semi-structured interview process to collect qualitative data. The participants were selected through community knowledge of sustainable home ownership in the Marquette, Michigan area, and these participants voluntarily participated in the study. And my questions that I interviewed them with were open-ended to relief of my personal bias on these topics. I recorded these interviews and they were transcribed by an alcohol auditor. And I just listed some of the most important questions I asked in my interviews. The first being, what are the motivations to build a home, particularly in Marquette? How did you plan the home based on the environment and themselves, their lifestyle, stuff like that? What materials did you consider, and why did you choose not to use particular materials? How did you source your materials? And how did you incorporate home if at all? Also, how does the layout fit your lifestyle or your lifestyle? The results of my study, I thought the most important thing I thought was interesting. Everyone mentioned solar energy and the importance of sunlight in their homes before I asked the question of orientation, energy efficiency, anything like that. And I think that really draws the importance of sunlight in the northern climate, both for warmth and solar energy, but also just happy. Secondly, the second most important thing was insulation. It's cold here. The three top insulators that people listed were cedar bales, straw, and then natural grade insulation. The materials were locally sourced most of the time, and if it wasn't feasible to get them locally, people had to get them from other places. And that was just feasibility, both for affordability and building structure. Also, the orientation was mentioned a lot, both on site on the person's property, as well as geographically it's oriented to get solar energy like that. I put a couple quotes from my results and I'll read them for you. I think it's important to mention these just because it highlights the first thing I mentioned about solar energy and warmth. The first is pretty much every step of our design is informed by the location and the elements of our house. We are trying to reduce our energy consumption so the house is smaller than the average American home. We built it so that the walls are 14 inches thick. So it's like having a big coat our wall winter and super well insulated. Really paid off. It's basically nothing to eat it. And the second is the house faces pretty much south. I did that on purpose. The west side of the building is pretty much just a solid sheet of siding with very few windows on it, because the windows come out into the west. The view is to the south and east, so where the sunrise constellations are across right now. And I think these both also prove the importance of nature in people's lives, because they don't think they're a super outdoorsy nature person. It's humanity. And there were some limitations to my study, mainly time. This had to be done in a 16-week semester. I got my project approved by the IRB, and then the interview length, I wanted to be respectful of concept this time. And then the participants, I just had brief discussions of their topic, of their project. Everyone's like, I could go so much more into depth, but we're screening. And I only have 5 participants in my study, but I think this reached a broad reach of knowledge. Takeaways from my study. The first thing I would say is this is not research. I would get like specific facts and numbers about stuff like this, like insulation, the RVAC, stuff like that. This research proves that there's vast knowledge of sustainable building practices in Marquette, Michigan. And there's always room to expand that and bringing more knowledge to it. This research could help future research or future projects. If planning stuff, if this research was expanded, it can help responsible sustainable development or personal development. And I would like to give a full acknowledgement first. Northern Michigan University is located upon the ancestral lands of the Three Fires Confederacy. And I would like to also give a full shout out to my professor, Dr. Sarah Littfeld, for mentoring me and helping me along the way, the participants in my study, and the friends that supported me. Thank you.
2 questions. First, what are some ideas you have for retrofitting? So if it's not a new building, what are some things that you do on an existing structure? And the second one is maybe more of a request. The university facilities department just wrote a green building code, so they have a document that says these are the things there. I actually just want to ask you to maybe do it based on what you know.
Well, your first question, I think things can definitely, existing structures can definitely retrofitted to be sustainable. I think there's an extra cost to that. You might have to take away a certain window, but I think it's definitely feasible, and I think it's another way of being sustainable, and you're not.
Was there anything surprising or interesting that you learned in this process that maybe influenced your own? Because I know one of the things you've always thought about is maybe someday in the future you might do some kind of building project. Like, was there something that you like really surprised by or struck by that you might take away in your own journey of even or if and when you get to either retrofit them?
Yeah. I've never thought like the constellation aspect of like seeing the sky. One of the participants mentioned that. I also kind of forgot about this aspect. One of the participants was like, in a northern climate, you must have a moon. Like, no matter what, build a moon. And I was like, you're so right. That's something that I totally forget about all the time. I think talking to everyone was insightful and like reminded me of things that I love about homes and thank you for your time.
Good reason. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Yeah.
It could be loaded. That's what I'm here for. Yeah. I tried. All right, and our second presentation, we will have Junior in Earth Science, as well as Isabel Ertl, also in Environmental Studies and Sustainability, working with Dr. Jessica Thompson, and their presentation is composting at NMU. So we just had an introduction, but again, I'm Delaney. And I'm Isabel. And today we're going to talk about composting and the compost career at NMU. But just before we get started, I want to give a little shout out because there are 6 other compost group members who put in just as much hard work, and they both deserve all of the credit for the work they put in. So the initial issue on campus had the influence on the start of composting on campus is food waste. And to give you guys a little bit of a background, there's roughly 2 million pounds of food waste each year. And then just to go a little further, this translates to one student wastes roughly 140 pounds of food on an individual level annually. And then in the United States, just over 12% of all food wasted comes from college campuses. And then this amount of food waste not only translates to instantly $1.7 billion lost a year, but it also translates to 1.9 metric tons of CO2 that is emitted back into our atmosphere. And so, awesome solution to that is composting, which is a natural process where you're completing carbon-rich materials, so greens like food waste, for example, with nitrogen-rich materials, so browns like leaves and paper. And when you get an ecosystem with microorganisms, which then break down those materials and they thrive in that environment, and then you turn it into something usable by plants, nutrient-rich fertilizer. And again, it's just not for reusing materials and preventing them from just going to waste the plant. Composting is important because it recycles food and prevents unorganic matter in the landfill. And then as a result, this reduces greenhouse gas emissions such as methane. And then just to kind of think about this in a physics perspective, the waste from food is converted into a nutrient-rich soil that can then be reused for production. However, it is important to ensure a clean stream of compost. A clean stream of compost is important because it prevents contamination in composting operations. It is really important to ensure the materials that are entering the batch are compostable. This is because non-organic matter does not break down because it contains numerous pollutants, and then as a result, this will affect the final product quality that is sent to farmers and ranchers. So how this kind of plays into campus is because NMU Dining has a partnership with Park Street Compost, which has been pre-existing. They have been collecting all of the pre-consumer waste in their restaurants, such as like kitchen scraps. And so we already had that pre-existing relationship. And then also, whenever you kind of survey students, one big thing you hear is like composting at NMU. So we just kind of wanted to take that a step further and start doing posting too.
And then moving forward, I've been hosting some monthly meetings each month since last November. We've had a group of student organizations come to these, such as like Group House, so those growth-based organizations, eco-reps. And then also in partnership with community partners like Partners Free Compost and Diamond, of course. So I've been hosting these meetings each month and gotten a lot of great things done, but obviously a highlight is the compost group, just because in these meetings we had a lot of student advocacy preaching, like, let's just do it, like, let's just start. So super exciting and kind of launched, and our first collection was February 24th.
So for scheduling, between our 8 compost crew members, we have given dining services, all of our availabilities, and 2 to 3 members are each shift. However, better communication between management and scheduling is needed to just keep things consistent. Right now, food diversion happens Tuesdays and Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. So before each shift, members of the compost group are signed up that compost collection is in progress. Members then remove all garbage cans from the dining hall just to ensure that all waste and food is put on the carousel. That way, diversion can begin. And then a typical shift includes 2 to 3 members of the compost crew that stand in the back and collect all food off of the carousel. All food scraps and fibers can be tossed into the Fulber. And then at the end of each shift, we take all our full bins and we weigh them. After reporting the weight, we then dump all the full bins into Partridge Creek trailer.
You're probably wondering, why do we need to have students on the line in order to compost? And again, it's for trying to prevent contamination. So here, this is the poster that is actually on the line that students can reference when they're unsure if something is compostable. There's about 16 official items identified. But we've already done some alternatives. There's about 6 on the left there. And some of them have already been implemented, which is awesome. And again, our students are there to just kind of pick those items out and either recycle them or throw them out so they're not affecting the compost operation. So we have like a little bit of data. So first I'm going to start with, we first collected February 24th. If you look at this graph, we don't have data till the 15th. You're probably wondering why. That is because we did not have a scale to weigh the food waste. So the data starts on the 15th. So with this data, it's about 4,000 collected. However, when you think about it, we started February 24th, so that number is definitely higher, which is so exciting that much has been diverted from entering the landfill. But I also want to acknowledge that you can see there's a lot of variation in this chart, which just tells us we need to pay attention to some confounding variables, such as like sometimes NLB has like fancy dinners, which is going to bring in more students and more food waste, or holidays, students go home, and also admittedly when students are waiting at the end of each shift, sometimes students aren't weighing at the end of each shift, so like it kind of waits. So you can kind of see like delays and why these numbers are higher because there's not the most consistent with it. So this is telling us going forward that to do like further like real like research on this, we need to like kind of start sending up really consistent ways so we can kind of make those correlations between why some days are higher. And I also just want to highlight, I know some faculty have also expressed interest in doing further research with this. So hopefully we'll see some more detailed stuff in the future.
So one thing that compost members used to do at the beginning of each shift is you would have one member stand out in the dining hall just to kind of direct students and make sure like if any questions came up, we could answer them. And so one kind of really rewarding thing from that was we got to hear student reactions firsthand. And so many people expressed that they were happy to see the changes they're finally being implemented on campus. And then along with that, students also expressed the want to be able to individually begin composting and just like having the ability to sort through their own scraps at the end of each meal.
So as a result, to answer this, we're hosting an educational event for students in NLB. It's going to be on April 28th, and it's going to last most of the day, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. We're calling it Sort Smart, and it's going to be in partnership with obviously Diamond. And so what it's going to be is basically students, if they're eating at NLD, they can just put their waste on the carousel like it's normal if they're not interested. But if students are interested, we're going to have a team go outside with bins of like non-compostable, compost, etc. And we're going to help them sort that waste into the appropriate bins. And also, just an opportunity for them to learn. Also, anyone is welcome. So if any of you just want to, eat in NLD that day and have that experience, more than welcome to it. And also, there's going to be a table for Partners Free Compost because they're just an amazing organization and also deserve to just have, like, spread the word about this.
So we do have some future plans that are in the works, but we just kind of want to preface that nothing is like set in stone. These are just things that we're thinking of. And it would be getting rid of the garbage cans in the dining hall permanently, and then expand this operation to all the dish team members at our mixed dining, so this can become a full-time process. And then also implementing a reusable container program in the dining hall to just kind of incentivize takeout containers. And then with that, a surcharge will be put in place for students who choose to continue to use single-use plastics.
And I'm gonna also, with this expanding the operation to the dish team, I think inevitably the goal is to kind of not even have a compost crew. It's just going to be all of the people who are on the dish team are just going to like know how to sort waste. And I think eventually compost crew won't exist, but it's just an expectation. And with that, that's all we have for you. Thank you. And also, I just want to express that we're super excited to be sharing this information. It's super exciting what we're doing this on campus, and super excited to see where it takes us. So again, thank you so much for this. Yep, of course.
And thank you so much for this work. This is so important. And you're right. Like every time you survey, composting, like
And like that's what they love it. Like, they give up like composting, please.
I was shocked by that first time. It was 12%. Like, why do you think that is now that you've done this and you've sort of seen the underbelly of like how food systems work on Northern campus? Like, why do you suppose that is? Like, why is like 12% of food waste in US comes from college campuses? Why is that?
I think a big thing, honestly, is because especially even at Northern, everything's kind of just already like put on the plates, and like it's like an absurd amount of food that is put, like, and so if like some students have like food that they're not really interested in, now you have them taking like 2 to 3 plates of food just to have like one specific item, and so then that just like gets thrown away because they don't want it and no one else does. So I think that kind of just adds up over time.
And admittedly, honestly, the quality, you know, it's like sometimes something doesn't taste good. So it's like if my dinner's bad one day, it's like that's another like compounding factor. It's like if you have a dinner that's not really good quality, of course that day's gonna skyrocket, you know. But if the food doesn't taste the best, you know, you're gonna have a lot of it contributing to that result. But I think they should definitely individually serve, you know, rather than like I'm committing to this giant plate of food that I don't want half of it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like students know how much they can individually eat, so I feel like it just makes sense to have that option to be able to take like the food they want and how much of it that they're.
Any other questions? Cool. Well, thank you so much for listening.
All right, so next up we have Lake Braxton in Environmental Studies and Sustainability, James Krebs and Ezra Dedenbach, also in Environmental Studies. We're working with Dr. Sarah Middlefeld, and their presentation is Future of Woody Biofuel on NMU's campus.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for my name is Blake Brockton. I'm a feedback, and this is a collaborative project between 2 capstone groups about the future of woody biomass on the NMU's campus. This project is based on using woody biomass to offset a portion of natural gas that is used on campus for the use of heating and cooling throughout. 56.7% of the total gas burning is only for heating and cooling. Using woody biomass, you can offset thus lowering our emissions. The wood used for this project is a 75-mile radius of Marquette. This is what that 75-mile radius looks like. As you can see, it encompasses a large portion of the Upper Peninsula and even a sliver of the ocean. This is important because the Michigan Health Climate Plan and NMU Carbon Neutrality Plan both focus on reducing our carbon emissions 100% by 2050. In order for our campus to reach these goals, we have to start making progress now, and focusing on energy production is the best way to do so. More methodology, we looked at legal documents that were available to us, as well as doing interviews with Dave Holly and then compiled this data based on British thermal unit values and economic feasibility. And that brings us to the back. The Ripley plant is all of campus heat, and it's powered by multiple fire units. The first one was installed in 1965 was fueled off natural gas. And boilers 2 and 3 were installed in 2006 and burn natural gas. In 2012, NMU installed a biomass boiler that essentially replicated cost conversion. Since the biomass burner was installed, the first boiler installed in 1965 has been decommissioned. And that fourth boiler, that biomass one, is not fired biomass since 2016. So it's just burning natural gas. It brings us to the back of the forestry. In this graphic, you can see the dark blue areas are the forestry industry lands. And so inside of our 25-mile radius, there's significant lands that are being used for the forestry. And when we talk about the forest products, they are harvesting here, and the lands that they're harvesting from, they're only harvesting from 1/3 of their annual growth. And so that means every year, there's about 2/3 of the new growth stays, so it's still a sustainable harvest. And the land management happens in a 10-year cycle. So 10% or every 10 years, they have surveyed on. So every year, they're cataloging 10% of their land, surveying what needs to be harvested, and what is the best way to sustainably care for it. And right now, the market is volatile for wood products. In a post-COVID world, many things are going paperless, so the mills are not running at capacity. So a lot of the high-quality full grade chips, the hardwood wood chips that are used by the Ripley plant are not in demand. So right now, the market is trying to adjust to these changes. And that brings us to the results. And right now, it looks as though woody biomass has great potential to offset the majority, if not all, of the natural gas used here on campus. In a report from 2014 by the former director of the Ripley plant, it was stated that up to 88% of natural gas use could be offset by wood chips. And in a 2023 report by Black Beach on Carbon County, stated that 26.7% of plant food could be reduced by switching to woody biomass. Scope 1 and 2 emissions refer to Scope 1, the on-site production, so the emissions directly from campus, that includes the Ripley plant burning natural gas and the car fleet, as well as Scope 2, the purchased electricity, so that would be all of the carbon producing the electricity that we purchase from our network like power. So this 26.7% reduction in our emissions that would reach our 2030 goals just by switching to woody biomass. And this graphic models the natural gas use compared to hardwood chips and MMBtu, so 1 million BTU units. And so as we look at this, the green line is 50% moisture content. That is about the moisture content that the chips can be harvested, the hardwood chips can be harvested at coming out of the forest. You can see around, it'll take over 40,000 tons of chips to reach our campus's thermal demands. And whereas if we lower the moisture content of these woods to even 40% or 30%, we will be well within offsetting gas with that higher capacity.
All right, moving on to the financial section. This was conducted by Blake and I. Overall, we found that input costs are just higher for woody biomass as compared to natural gas. On the left-hand side there is a bridge table from the Black Beach report, noting some of the estimated breakdown costs of woody biomass. Notably, attributable and operating agents are ones that do not appear in natural gas that would have to be accounted for biomass directly. I would found that natural gas prices are generally more volatile at the moment than wood biomass pricing, especially with the potential for a long-term supplier contract with the woody biochip business. The longer-term contract would allow us to potentially lock in prices, and we wouldn't have to deal with all of this uncertainty. For example, just in the past 3 years, this like annual air quality emissions model. They're competing for operating $53 per ton of emissions. So by reducing by that amount, there could be potential savings for like 500 per year. So moving forward, the use of significant potential to offset natural gas usage and thus lower carbon emissions as a whole. But the extent is currently limited for legal and logistical limits. Specifically, the legal limit is regarding to sulfur oxide and nitrogen oxide emissions, which caps for woody biomass usage at 42,000 tons per year. On the logistics side of things, that would be like how much storage we have on site, the quality and efficiency of our system. All right. In terms of future avenues of research, much of this is gleaned from our forest products. Specifically, we work on microchips. So the positives of using this style of microchips on campus is that it dry more efficiently, less residues in the system that we need out, better quality quantity of them, so you get them more efficient price to generate more electricity on campus and get the storage. So by expanding our storage, that keep more operating efficiently by more by year on site to further increase our you also which
I want to take this is really important. These are big questions that we're really talking about at this university. I did have a question about institution and lowering other different ways that we do sort of address it through research, really on what you know, so how we look at it.
On-site have communicate the same through the plan, have more to the grad students get them. And even if we have a shipper on campus, they would reduce transportation because there would be training spots or tops of the trees. And we could ship it here, dry it, store it, and then use it with 65 tops and improve it. One of the the CD because of the basically what outside the box it increased heat help with irritate help how that all evaporated and so that it talks to it didn't do like that ways to the can like other sort of based like heat recycler help that.
That was what I was trying to get at. Right. Yes. Where
teams run over all and keep the building water and the last so the last a little more difficult. And so they should require that our city go on this operation. So we're interested in the group that, and so I'll do that they have the at a time and the group. But all with all set up set so works. They and yes, but
And next up, we have Mackenzie Erie in social media design, management, and art history, and Colibri Drovich in biology, ecology concentration, with Dr. Ronnie Stock. And their presentation is what is divestment and what it means for NMU.
Not quite a research place, just to go, I think we're actually doing what I'm doing. And my last word is how does someone want to so we're going to what was the amount of out there? So first, this is just two of us, about 10 or so students. We just want to do a little bit of introduction. With our research experience, organization, there's no kind of like there's just whoever be passionate what they want to pursue. So this is love. So how I'm doing
I was involved in like the administration, communication. Yeah. Yeah. And I also proposed it.
So just to remember, what is that? We start so here we want to from possibilities. So we weren't directly and getting into the timeline of the administration, I will then start 2021 is started off with the because for me personally, I was quite sure outside of this, we really want to get two candidates that do support that continue on. A lot of us really passionate about what we really want to support environmental conscious, understand kind of different problems with 18 before you speak, talking to ministers, the budget president, the finance, to look at their investments. Market and protest while we want to be a There's a little bit of wanting to hit. I'm keen to get certain so that's a catch their investment, so the research team, financial and business. This is talking to people, participate, sign,
Yeah, so what is the in order? Like I said, the board passed it unanimously, so for 7-0. And kind of development, and raising the cap, which put together the proposal for the board based on our recommendation in our club proposal. When I put it earlier, for the proposal and they gave us a recommendation. So what they voted on was, to divest 50% the non-tax possible by next year and 100% by 2028, while increasing the sustainability related investment. So that was kind of like a three-part, proposal that they supported. And then there's some of the, points that mentioned that we not proposed.
I've been for the non-recent for what has that needed for very these outlets when it comes to wanting to take advantage of that? Passion about that. Whatever, to like talking news sources, more people, TV channels, and everything like that. I think it's really passionate to all the work that is important to get it out there and learn about. Really important. I was thinking sometimes frustrated. Oh, I want this to happen, but no longer. Make sure that we are literally heard and take our point seriously. Being to get it. So, try to continue to see the students. Broadcast of their testimony as usual.
Yeah, so like, the three kind of things that they are successful at like any, any campus. Looking at it as student involvement, and getting them prepared, getting something that's like you can do yourself
mentioned, and then she said, meeting, but the higher up student administration and honor stuff, having student mention that like, it can go like two ways, it was then. And then we were just like, being on our board, like, one fun actually, getting well, and then, and then. Those are like the things that I mean, like the extend a huge thank you and shout out to our advisor for this talk in day one. He can't be here, but he has been like the best supporter ever for this campaign. So.
I love this so much. I love you not my organization. You're organization I think it's so important, and that's research and the work really shows you not just like, I mean, really cool. What can you do digitally, like, but your work also shows like we need to first structural changes, but the university investing in, how they're organizing initiatives, like listening to students, like I feel like there's so much that I love. And I love her. So I guess it's a little question. Good work, yeah. But yeah, better. Guys really good. Yeah. Yeah. I was just curious, there's a time when, actually, yes, you're at the institution, how clear. I mean, it was only a couple of years, but. And so I'm curious, in that process, did you find yourself having to use multiple times to actually educate the administration of the university in a way, or were they just like, yes, we can wait for you to come? It really surprised me that we were in a initial and a year ago, that's just a lot of our actually graduated. So this whole literacy thing for you. But yeah. But it was a lot. Like I said, they were focused on thinking university that which is understandable, but you can make it fun. Especially over the past year, that seeing the a big reason why, that's a big reason why.
Yeah, and kind of like approach that like recruitment kind of strategy, like kind of use like this is not and they have this on their strategy. That was just another. And I think the presidency switch the process kind of really awesome and like helpful for us. Like she was the one reaching out to us and the
No, I was gonna ask what you guys doing personally now. Like, where are you taking it?
well, that's the club right now, so I think it's supposed to be an actual here and kind of that's enough. But I'm working in the accountability committee.
Well, I know our so people are involved and passionate about it. So we have to do things
also, like you said, up to 50% in the vacuum started. So keep my level and keep the vacuum on. And obviously we want to be turned to 50%. So it's kind of, like you said, keeping with connection. Continue. A little bit not as, but we also recognize that it like fashion. That we move forward on this is great, but not much.